My girlfriend said, "You need to move out. I'm pregnant, and it's not yours." And that one sentence felt like a car crash inside my skull, a soundless explosion that left only ringing. For a moment, I actually laughed because my brain just refused to accept it. Ava stood there, leaning against the kitchen counter with that fake calmness she used when she'd already made up her mind. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Her arms were crossed, her jaw tight, and her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I said, "Wait, what do you mean it's not mine?" And she sighed, like I was a child asking a stupid question. "It just happened, Daniel. You've been distant lately, and I needed comfort," she said. Comfort. That word hit me harder than anything. I blinked, trying to process, and managed to say, "You cheated on me." And she shot back, "Don't twist this. You made me feel alone. What was I supposed to do?" For a second, I thought it was a prank or a test, because Ava was never good at hiding her jokes, but her expression didn't crack. There was something rehearsed about the way she said every word, like she'd practiced this speech in the mirror. I turned away, my mind racing, and that's when I heard the horn outside. I looked through the window. There was a black pickup idling by the driveway. The guy inside waved at her, casual, confident. "Who the hell is that?" I asked. Ava flinched just slightly before replying. "That's Marcus. He's helping me move my stuff. Don't make this a big deal." My pulse spiked. "Helping you move? You're moving out?" And she looked at me with that cold stare that says the decision was made long before the conversation started. "You need to move out, Daniel. I can't be here with you. It's not good for me. Not in my condition," she said. "Your condition?" I repeated, half yelling, half laughing, because it sounded like something from a bad TV drama. "You're pregnant with another man's child, and you're kicking me out of my own house?" And she snapped, "You can't throw a pregnant woman out. That's abuse. Everyone will side with me, Daniel." That's when I realized she wasn't panicking. She was performing. Her tone, her timing, the way she positioned herself by the door, it was all part of something planned. "Ava, this is insane," I said, stepping forward, and she pulled out her phone instantly, holding it like a weapon. "Don't touch me. I'll call the police," she shouted, and I froze. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I saw exactly where this was going. If I said one wrong word, one wrong move, I'd be the villain in her story. I backed away, breathing hard, and she said, "Please don't make this worse, Daniel. Just pack your stuff and go stay somewhere for a few days." And I asked, "A few days? Or forever?" And she turned her head slightly, just enough to let me see the smirk before she said, "You'll see." Then she opened the door, stepped outside, and waved at Marcus like this was just another Saturday errand. I stood there, staring at the space she'd left, and the silence in the house felt heavy, like the air itself was waiting for me to understand that everything normal had just died. I looked at the framed photo of us on the shelf. Last Christmas, smiling, fake snow, her hands around my neck. And suddenly it looked like evidence, not memory. I packed a bag, locked the door, and left, but something deep down told me this wasn't over. It wasn't heartbreak. It was a setup, and I could feel it even then. 3 days later, I went back to the house to grab some papers I'd left in the office. It was raining, the kind of slow drizzle that makes everything feel like it's happening underwater. I parked in the same driveway that I had paid for, walked up to the same door that I had installed, and tried the key I'd carried for 5 years, and it didn't turn. I tried again, slower this time, as if the lock just needed to remember me. But it didn't. That's when I noticed the new metal gleaming in the keyhole, and my stomach sank. "No way," I muttered. I knocked once, twice. For a second, nothing. Then, from upstairs, a window creaked open. Ava appeared, leaning out with that smug, triumphant half-smile that used to come out when she was winning arguments over dishes or weekend plans. "You can't be here, Daniel," she shouted. I blinked at her, rain dripping down my face. "You changed the locks? On my house?" And she shouted back, "It's not just your house anymore. You left. You abandoned a pregnant woman. What kind of man does that?" I felt my pulse in my teeth. "You told me to leave," I yelled, and she rolled her eyes dramatically. "Sure, Daniel, keep telling yourself that. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? Go ahead, call the cops." And that's exactly what I did. When the officers arrived, she had already transformed into her victim mode, soft voice, hand on belly, tear tracks ready like props on a stage. I handed them the deed, told them everything. The older officer looked between us and said, "Sir, technically, if she's been living here for over 6 months, she's a resident. You can't just force her out." I said, "She changed the locks without my permission." And he said, "You'll have to handle this in civil court." I wanted to scream. Ava stood there behind them, pretending to be scared, whispering, "He gets angry when things don't go his way." And I felt my whole life tilt. The younger cop said, "Sir, we recommend you stay somewhere else tonight, just until this is sorted." And I looked at Ava. She was smirking behind her hand like she'd just won a chess game she started months ago. I said, "She's lying. She's not even pregnant." And she gasped, clutching her stomach, whispering, "Oh my God, the stress." And the officers immediately turned toward me like I'd punched her. I backed away, hands up, realizing she'd set this trap perfectly. They told me to leave or risk being detained for disturbing a resident. I left. I sat in my car across the street watching the light from my own living room flicker against the rain. Through the curtains I saw a silhouette. Marcus, tall, broad, moving boxes, laughing. They toasted glasses. My house, my wine, my sofa. The next morning, I woke up to 20 missed messages. Friends, family, co-workers, screenshots of Ava's posts. When you love someone and they abandon you at your weakest, you learn who they really are, she'd written, along with a photo of her in my kitchen wearing one of my shirts, hand on belly. Hundreds of likes. Comments calling her brave. Some tagging me directly with little dagger emojis. My boss even texted me, "Are you okay? This is going around." I felt like someone had skinned my life alive and hung it up for public viewing. I tried calling her, no answer. Texted her, "Take down the post." She replied instantly, "Truth doesn't go away just because it hurts, Daniel." I typed back, "You're not even pregnant." She sent a photo of an ultrasound, blurry, with her name cropped out, and wrote, "You don't get to gaslight me." I zoomed in and noticed the timestamp, 3 months ago. That's when I knew. I drove to the clinic she claimed she went to and asked for her records, but they told me there was no patient named Ava Jensen. I started digging. Every night, sitting in the car outside what used to be my home, scrolling through her social media. I found older photos, different cities, different men. Same captions, same poses. Always the same story. He left me while I was pregnant. I found one account tagged in the comments, some guy named Derek. His page was private, but the bio said single dad, just trying to rebuild. My heart started pounding. I messaged him, "Hey, do you know someone named Ava Jensen?" 10 minutes later, he replied, "Don't tell me she found you too." We met the next day at a diner off the highway. Derek looked tired, older than his pictures. He told me everything. How she moved in fast, took over his finances, claimed to be pregnant, turned his friends against him, then vanished with cash and jewelry when he threatened to expose her. He even had screenshots of fake ultrasound photos, the same ones she sent me. I stared at the phone shaking with this mixture of rage and relief. I wasn't crazy. It was real. I went to a lawyer with Derek's evidence, filed a claim to reclaim my house, and got a temporary restraining order issued against her. But Ava didn't stop. She posted a crying video, holding her stomach, saying, "I just want peace, but Daniel won't stop harassing me." And I watched my inbox explode with hate again. People I didn't know were messaging me things like "rot in hell" and "you're a monster." She was winning the narrative, and I was drowning in her fiction. Then one night, as I was sitting in my car watching from across the street, I saw her step out with Marcus. They were laughing, carrying a box toward his truck. I started filming. When they drove off, I went to the back door, still had the spare key hidden under the gutter. It didn't fit anymore, but I noticed the new lock had a sticker from a local locksmith. I called the shop, pretending to be the homeowner. They confirmed Ava had ordered the change and registered under my address. That was the final piece. I printed everything. Her social media posts, the ultrasound duplicates, the locksmith invoice, and took it all to court. The hearing was surreal. Ava showed up wearing white, carrying a fake baby bump, hand trembling on her belly, tears ready like ammunition. But when my lawyer handed over the photos from Derek, her whole act flickered. The judge looked at her and said, "Ms. Jensen, would you like to explain why your ultrasound image matches another patient's from a clinic in Chicago?" And Ava stammered, eyes darting around. Marcus, sitting behind her, looked confused, then furious. She whispered, "They're lying," but her voice cracked. It was over. The judge granted me possession of my house and ordered her to vacate immediately. She tried one last performance, crying, saying, "Where will I go?" And the judge replied flatly, "Somewhere that isn't built on fraud." Walking back into my home after 3 weeks felt unreal. The air smelled different, heavier, like the walls themselves had been witnesses. Most of my stuff was gone, some furniture, electronics, but I didn't care. I had the keys again. I sat on the floor in the empty living room, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't angry, just tired. I thought about Derek and how many others like us were out there. Ava was probably already plotting her next story, next man, next pregnancy. But not here. Not anymore. People always ask now, "Why don't you date anymore?" And I just smile and say, because love isn't always love. Sometimes it's just a really good scam. It's been 6 months since everything happened, and I still wake up sometimes expecting to hear her in the kitchen making coffee, humming along to some song she never finished. And for half a second I forget that Ava was never really that person. She was a performance stitched together from charm and instinct. The house feels quieter now, not peaceful, just empty in a way that echoes. I got rid of the furniture she picked, repainted the walls, changed the locks again. But sometimes when I walk past the hallway mirror, I catch a glimpse of myself and think, "You look like someone who almost lost everything." And that's exactly what I am. People always say you learn lessons from pain, but pain doesn't teach, it brands. I found out through Derek that Ava disappeared right after the court ruling, wiped her accounts, vanished like a ghost. 2 months later, he sent me a message with a screenshot from a dating app. Different name, same smile. She was in another city. I didn't even feel anger anymore, just this cold understanding that some people don't change, they just reset. The lawyer told me I could press further charges for identity fraud, but I didn't. I just wanted to breathe again. Work took me back, slowly, but whispers lingered. Some people still think I was the guy who kicked out a pregnant woman. The internet never fully lets you out of its courtroom. My parents don't ask about her anymore, but sometimes my mom calls just to check in, and she says, "Have you met anyone new?" And I say, "No, Mom, I'm okay," because okay is the closest thing to happy I can honestly say right now. I started going to therapy. My therapist told me, "You can't rebuild trust by waiting for the right person, Daniel. You rebuild it by forgiving yourself for believing the wrong one." And that stuck with me. At night, I sit on the porch with a cup of tea, no wine anymore, no noise, and I scroll through Reddit sometimes, reading stories from other people who got scammed, manipulated, broken. It's weirdly comforting, realizing I'm not the only idiot who mistook control for love. Sometimes I think about posting my own story, maybe under some throwaway account, maybe right here, just to let people know what red flags really look like when they're disguised as smiles. I'd started exactly the way it began, the sentence that changed everything. My girlfriend said, "You need to move out. I'm pregnant," and then I'd tell them what I wish someone had told me back then. That manipulation doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like crying. Sometimes it sounds like, "I just need comfort." And sometimes it wears your favorite hoodie while burning your life down behind your back. I still lock the doors twice every night. Not because I think she'll come back, but because the idea of her ever existing in my life again is scarier than any break-in. And if anyone's wondering whether I've moved on, I guess the truth is I'm still moving. Slowly, carefully, like someone learning how to live in a house that finally belongs to them again. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments, drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.